But what's good, y'all? Welcome back to another episode of Otaku House. We out here. It is I, your boy, Kente the Timberwolf.
Turtle.
And it's your boy Ego.
And yeah, you already know what it is. Stay as long as you want. Leave whenever you're ready. But remember, we here to have a good time. But normally, right, how we do this show, if you've been paying attention, is we come up with a topic where one person knows it, the others don't, and then we discuss it once we come in, right? But before the show, Turtle decided he's actually going to tell us what the prompt is that he has. And there's a reason. Take it away.
So, the prompt today is going to be, which Pokemon region feels the most Pokemon? The reason I bring this up is because the first two generations of Pokemon games are not designed like Pokemon games because there was nothing they use as a basis. They're designed as JRPGs. Mm-hmm. The first Pokemon game is designed that way, and it shows in the stat totals of the Pokemon when you can obtain them. And as you move throughout the game, the Pokemon get steadily better and better. Mm-hmm. The entire idea, despite Game Freak saying that this is a game about friendship, was that you would drop the weaker Pokemon as you went through the region to get the stronger Pokemon. The only early game Pokemon that stays relevant throughout the whole game is your starter, who, as they evolve, gain the stats to keep up with the rest of the Pokemon in the area. Everybody else was meant to be discarded, not like released, but like put in the PC and replaced with stronger Pokemon. Right, and it shows that in the gameplay design. That's why the strongest trainers in the game, the Elite Four, and your rival, I want to make this very clear because I brought this up before and somebody argued it with me, and your rival at the end of the game, stats-wise, has the strongest Pokemon in the game.
Okay.
This isn't just about, he doesn't love his Pokemon enough, which is the reason the game gives you. But looking at his Pokemon, he has Gyarados, he has Arcanine, he has Exeggutor, which are some of the best Pokemon from Gen 1, but are difficult to get because one of them,
evolution methods, yeah.
Because the alternate evolution methods, one of them requires you to catch a Magikarp and actually raise it. And considering for people playing this for their first time, the game's dropped before the anime, you have no way of knowing Magikarp turns into Gyarados.
And when even did XP Shear come out? Experience
Shear dropped in Gen 2.
Yeah.
We had Experience all in Gen 1, and it was garbage.
Yep.
Exeggutor was a stone evolution, so you not only had to know the Pokemon that evolved into it, you had to know which stone to use, and you had to know that stones existed and where to get them.
Right.
Which meant a lot of exploration.
But now, hold on, real quick though, because I'm curious about one thing. By the time Pokemon, the game came out, right? By the time Red and Blue came out, Legend of Zelda was already dropped. Mm-hmm. Okay, so then Legend of Zelda players who got curious would have found the stones.
Yes, Legend of Zelda players were adventure players. Gen 1 players are playing a JRPG.
Good point. So they wouldn't have thought about that at first.
So in JRPGs, how you get these extra items are typically side quests that you are informed of. Whereas in Pokemon,
they don't tell you.
That's true.
Like if you walk through Celadon and you just talk to random NPCs, one of them's going to be like, we have elemental stones on sale in the shop.
Right.
But you have to go into the shop to find that NPC. And then you have to know where to go to the 4th floor, which is specifically where they're sold. And actually a shout out to Gen 2 because in Gen 1 they're listed as being a limited time sale and they're no longer being sold in Gen 2. That's actually a continuity thing they did well.
Alright, bet.
But your rival, Green, who I will forever call Green because that's what he was originally supposed to be called.
Yeah.
Guys, your rival, outside of the 3 I just mentioned, which I mentioned because they involve your starter, also has an Alakazam, a trade-only evolution that you have to trade a Kadabra and therefore catch an Abra who is going to teleport the moment any fight starts. And evolve into Kadabra, and then you have to know to trade it to evolve it. Again, that's never explained.
Right.
Guys, and then you have whatever starter he started with, because they're the only ones from early game that can keep up.
Right.
And he has, let's see, Pidgeot, which,
Yeah.
Pidgeot, the starter, Alakazam, either 2 of the 3, Arcanine, Gyarados, Exeggutor, depending on the starter they have.
Right.
And then the last one, I believe...
I keep wanting to say Snorlax, but I don't believe
It's not
that's
the case.
Snorlax. Yeah.
I keep thinking Rhydon, but I don't think that's the case either. Regardless, they are all... The point of it is that they were all difficult Pokemon to obtain, and none of them are early game, outside of Pidgeot, who he would probably need for Fly,
Right.
and his starter. So Green is playing the game as intended. He's dropping off weaker Pokemon and picking up stronger ones. Because at the beginning of the game, he has a Pidgey. He keeps Pidgey.
Yeah.
He has a Rattata. Doesn't keep that. Because he has an Abra, which he does keep. Eventually evolve into Alakazam. But his teams at the beginning are basically jokes. Like Gyarados, at no point, at any point does he ever have a Magikarp on his team.
Right.
But he does have Gyarados. He's depicted as being the final boss. He's not your rival, which technically he is.
Right.
Guys, he is the final boss of the game. You get to see his development. He's basically the Kefka of Pokemon as far as developing into the villain goes.
Right.
And he eventually, your goal is to beat the Elite Four and become the champion. And when you get there, he already did it.
You bring up a really excellent point about the fact that he drops all of these low stat Pokemon. However, I think there's a lore reason that specifically proves the reason for that choice. And it's, you mentioned Rattata and Raticate.
Yeah.
He loses them. Like, they die explicitly in Gen 1. Maybe that concept of them dying made it and reinforced that he needed only the strongest so that they would never die.
This is actually, I like this.
Yeah.
I like this theory a lot.
Same.
I'm sorry, it's going to bother me.
I got you. Okay. So then, with the question standing, I've been thinking about this ever since you brought it up, right?
Yeah.
And so I feel like there's 2 ways to answer this,
Yeah.
right? Obviously, objectively and subjectively.
Oh,
Right?
I'm sorry. I was right. It is right on.
Oh yeah, see, I figured it might have been
There we
too.
go.
But now, this is the reason why I mentioned that, because when you first asked me the question, mind you, like for the audience, this is like a week ago, all right? My first thought was Gen 3, right? But I also knew I was being biased when I thought that.
Mm-hmm.
So, because like Gen 3 is obviously my favorite.
Yep.
So I was just like, let me take a step back and be like, objective here. Which one could actually be the most Pokemon or represents Pokemon the best, right? And as far as I'm concerned, this is not Gen 4. And Gen 5 didn't do it justice either.
I kind of have to argue for Gen 4, but I do want you to continue.
I'm sorry, I just hate Infinite.
That's fair.
That's
He is absolutely a hater.
I don't care. I hate him. So it's not Gen 4. But, I mean, and I also wanted to say Gen 9 because Paldea is probably the best one we've gotten thus far. But I also wouldn't put it in the same category as its previous generations. Mm-hmm. So like it's kind of hard for me. Now, I want to look at Gen 6 specifically because of the remakes for Hoenn, right? But if we're going to talk about which one feels the most Pokemon or which one represents Pokemon the best, which one is the most Pokemon, I'm pretty sure it was Gen 5 with Heart Gold and Soul Silver.
That's Gen 4.
That's Gen 4?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay, cool. So it's just not Sinnoh, but it's definitely, I want to say Heart Gold and Soul Silver.
Oh no. Okay.
Like that representation of Johto felt the most Pokemon.
So wait, what was the reason for the Gen 4 haterness?
Just Infernape.
He hates
Just-
Infernape because
just
Infernape was considered a better Blaziken.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, this is biased.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
There will be no Blaziken slander.
Well, I do need to be so clear. Amity Park was our first step in having a proper emotional connection with your Pokemon, which is the whole reason why Pokemon is supposed to be a friendship-based game.
Right.
And it to the point where it is a stat in the games that determines even whether some Pokemon evolve.
Right.
So,
I'll give you that.
to that end, it was the first time we ever got that proper.
I don't even think that was proper because I wasn't throughout the entire game. That was just in Emily Park, right?
Well,
I would argue it's Heart Gold and Soul Silver where your Pokemon follow.
Actually, that's what I was gonna say because I agree with you.
Yeah.
But that's why I also say Heart Gold and Soul Silver because you get to have your Pokemon walk around with you, right? Because you have to explain why is it that when you walk into a building, a giant Pokemon that was immediately behind you is no longer in the building when every other small Pokemon is. I just think as a lore, like when you're kind of like immersed in the game, you have to explain that, right? I had a Lugia outside. I walked into the Pokemon Center. He's no longer behind me. He doesn't fit in the building, bro. You know what I'm saying? Like, the idea of your Pokemon walking with you, granted, yes, was done back in Yellow, but it was, like, maximized and perfected in Heart Gold and Soul Silver. And that's me being unbiased.
So, I would actually, because I understand where you're coming from in the first instance, but I would agree with him that the first instance would be Pokemon Yellow with Pikachu following you around. And that concept
But it's not like, don't get me wrong, you're not wrong.
In Heart Gold and Soul Silver.
Yeah, it was absolutely perfected then.
Which I'm sad that they never brought back the Diamond and Pearl remix. Which, don't get me wrong, I didn't hate, but
I did.
There was a point where your Pokemon following behind you should have been.
It should have been a mainstay.
Yeah.
Honestly, yeah, pretty much. It should
Which
have been
is
different.
why it did come back in Paldea.
Yes.
Yes, and it was better then.
For limited times, but yes, they can follow you around. Because there is a timer on how long they can stay out. I was not aware of this.
Oh, I was not aware of this until now.
Yep. So I was trying to have my Pokemon follow me around, but after a certain time, they would just disappear. So I was having to keep doing it over and over and over again. Which, I do apologize. I just want to get right back to this, because there are a lot of things that Gen 1 gets crap for that were done on purpose.
Right.
Like, Gengar has a ghost type and a poison type. These are both physical moves. Gengar's physical attack stat is garbage. Its special attack stat is fantastic. Because
It's supposed to be a balancing mechanic.
yes, it was not designed with a meta in mind. Pokemon didn't have an official meta, at least not done by Nintendo, until Gen 2. Gengar was designed as a boss. And they nerfed it in the way they did to make it possible to beat it. Because the moves Gengar does learn are Hypnosis, are Toxic, are Dream Eater, are Confuse Ray. These moves would be...
Sorry.
These moves would suck in a normal playthrough on a Pokemon.
That's a horrible moveset.
It's what Agatha's knows. Because
Why would you put Toxic with Hypnosis?
Because in case...
And Dream Eater. I'm sorry.
Because the only Pokemon getting around Toxic are poison types.
You need a backup.
And Dream Eater is a psychic attack.
Right. But Hypnosis and Dream Eater make sense. Right? I put him to sleep, eat the dream, do damage, and heal myself.
Correct. But that's the thing, though. You're thinking about how these moves would work in a playthrough. You're not designed to have Gengar in the playthrough.
That's true.
Gengar is designed as a boss to overcome.
Right.
Just like the same thing with...
You can just happen to obtain.
that you just happen to be able to obtain. And it's the same thing with Dragonite, who your first time likely running into Dragonite is when you fight Lance.
Yeah, that's true.
Because you don't know what Dragonair is, you don't know what Dragonite is. You've probably never even seen a Dratini your first time playing. So your chances of running into this Pokemon is slim to none. And people talk about how Hyper Beam you didn't have to do a recharge. I don't think that was a glitch. That was on purpose, because Dragonite has a base 134 attack. And the whole point of if you knock out your opponent, you don't have to recharge, makes Dragonite one of the best options for a final boss you could have. He just hit one of your Pokemon so hard with a Hyper Beam,
fainted off rip.
and then he just gets to go again. Your next Pokemon comes out where he gets to Hyper Beam them a second time. And if he takes out that one, he gets to go again. He's designed as a boss. These aren't designed as Pokemon you're supposed to have with you on your journey. Gen 2 is a perfect sequel to that.
That makes sense.
Gen 2 is also not designed as a Pokemon game. It is designed as a sequel to Red, Blue, and Green.
Right.
Guys, and that's like Typhlosion has the same stat spread as Charizard.
Yeah.
Exactly the same
To the
stat
T.
spread. Like to the T.
But it's purified. And in that sense of purification, it's lost all of the other typings that it could potentially have.
Yeah, but so did the other two types, so it makes sense.
And
Yeah,
then you
but
go
as far
into
as-
that. Who is the final boss of Gen 2? Well,
Well,
the real final boss we're going to get
True
into.
final.
The about
The
to
true
say,
final
yeah.
boss we're going to get into.
There's the good final boss and then the true final
But
boss,
the
like
first
Persona.
final boss you fight and you get the credits is Lance. Guys, you have to now fight 3 Dragonites.
Yeah.
But at this point, there was a Dragon Gym. You're aware that Dragon types are weak against Ice types, which you may not have known your first time fighting Lance. There's no reason to know that. Fighting Lance is your first time fighting Dragon types in Gen 1. No trainer even has Dragonairs. Your first time seeing Dragonair or Dragonite is Lance in the final Elite Four battle.
Does that include Dratinis?
Correct.
Huh.
No trainer has Dratinis the whole time either.
Interesting.
And you can either get a Dratini at the
Safari Zone.
Right.
Safari Zone, where it has, I think, a 15% chance of being fished up with a Super Rod,
Yeah.
or at the Game Corner,
I thought you was gonna say that too.
where you have to know that you can get Pokemon there.
And at that point in the game, the only other, and from that generation, the only other one you could get is potentially Kingdra. Am I
No, I think Kingdra or at least Horsey is in Gen 2, if I'm not mistaken.
Kingdra's
Yeah.
in Gen 2.
Yeah.
Horsey and Seadra are in Gen 1.
Oh, good point.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, so you can't get a Seadra in Gen
Well,
1.
if we're talking about gold,
Going,
Yeah.
So I bring all that up because now going into Gen 2, you now have Lance, who has the 3 Dragonites. Before him, you have the Dark type trainer. You have the trainer using the new type. The new type that was designed to stop the old broken Psychic type.
Right.
So your new boss before the final boss is the new type that you now have to figure out how it works. You possibly run into Dark types up to this point. You maybe... Actually, hold up. Let's go over this real quick. Houndoom. Houndour is found in the Kanto region in Gen 2. You literally cannot run into it in Johto. Murkrow is found on Mount Silver. You literally cannot run into it until after you've beaten the league. You have Umbreon. They do give you an Eevee.
But if you don't know that it evolved through friendship,
Friendship.
because Espeon and Umbreon were new evolutions.
and it was a specific time of the day.
Yep,
Yeah,
you had
at
to evolve
night.
it at night through friendship, and you had to know to do that. Guys, and Sneasel is only found on Mount Silver, who you can only run into post-game. So Karen is potentially... Oh, and Tyranitar, whose first form Larvitar is found in Mount Silver.
Yeah, but he's not dark
He's-
type, is he?
Tyranitar is Dark type.
No, I know Tyranitar is dark type.
Larvitar and Previtar are not, no.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. So,
So
They
yeah.
switch it up.
So you potentially not run into a Dark type the whole game up until you fought her. She is potentially your first time. I think there's a chance Murkrow... No, I was thinking Murkrow might show up below Blackthorn, but it doesn't. That's Skarmory, Donphan, and Ursaring.
Also, shout out to Skirmory being a Gen 2 Pokemon, and I always thought it was a Gen 3 Pokemon. It only...
It was gold exclusive.
Oh, well, see, that's probably why. I only ever played Silver.
You probably were looking through Fall Arbor for a long
Yeah,
time.
yeah. Also, he didn't know it was also pronounced Fall Arbor. Just wanna
Yeah,
point
that thing happened. But as soon as he said that to me, I was like, oh, that makes so much sense.
that is how you
It's just fall trees.
Yeah. With the ashes and everything, it made sense to me.
Yep.
Yeah.
I kept calling it Falliver.
I understand where they were going.
Right.
Fall
that makes
Arbor
sense.
makes so much sense.
Yeah, but yeah, I was looking all throughout the route before Fall Arbor time, so I'm like, oh, okay, Skarmory.
Yep.
I'm like, this is a fire. This, like, I like the way it looks. It makes sense as a Gen 3 Pokemon. Always thought it was.
But yes, going back into that. So you beat Lance, you get the credits, the game is over, but then you find out that there's a whole nother region. And it's the region that was the previous generation.
Yeah.
And now you're going through all the same beats, except Koga was a member of the Elite Four. So when you get to Fuchsia, you end up running into his daughter, who has taken over the gym after he went to the Elite Four. We don't know what happened to Lorelei. She's disappeared. She's off somewhere.
She's probably actually on the 70 Islands, but because they don't exist yet.
Fair enough. So you go through the region, and then
Let's confirm that. That is confirmed, by the way.
What? The Seven Islands?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I already know, yeah.
Yeah.
That's where home is, yeah.
Yep, it's where you can catch a Lapras in Gen 1 as well.
Yeah.
Blessed, by the way. But you get to the 8th gym leader, Giovanni's gone.
Mm-hmm.
So who's going to be there? Because if you played the first game going into this game, which is designed as a sequel, you know Giovanni left. So who's the gym leader? You go in there, it's the final boss from the first game.
Mm-hmm.
But then after you beat him, because, okay, cool, that makes sense, the final boss came back. Beat him, and you then find out about the secret area, Mount Silver.
Mm-hmm.
You go through there, you go through easily the hardest area in the game, you make it up to the top of the mountain, and who do you run into?
Yourself.
You run into yourself from the first game. And his team is not stacked. He has all 3 starters, Snorlax, a level 81 Pikachu, which is the highest level trainer Pokemon you can run into in the series, until the rematch with him where it's level 88, and an Espeon, who, again, you might not have even known exists. Actually, no, you run into a trainer who has an Espeon on the way to Victory Road. And I think that's your first time running into an Espeon.
Also, can we just point out, because I'm pretty sure all 3 of us have read the Pokemon Adventures manga.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so that's actually Red. That's not your previous character.
Correct, that's Red.
Right, okay. The reason I want to point that out is because, granted, yes, Red in the manga did have an Espeon, especially by the time you get to Gen 2, but, like, I only want to point that out because I always thought it was a Snorlax that he had.
He does have a
He does
Snorlax.
have a
I just said
Snorlax, yeah.
Snorlax.
I thought you said...
3 starters, Snorlax, Pikachu, Espeon.
But you said Lapras.
No.
No.
Lapras
Okay.
is in the remake. He replaces Espeon with Lapras.
Okay, see, I always thought it was also Crystal that he could have done that too. Okay, because I remember playing Crystal. I just wasn't sure the team.
Also,
Yeah.
Red is technically just this. In the original, in Gen 1, Red is the stand-in for your character. So when you get around to Gen 2, it is technically yourself, even if, yes,
Right.
I understand by Pokemon, he's not yourself.
Well, I mean, true. I'm only saying that because the Pokemon that he has on his team, more than likely, it should just be Red. Granted, obviously, it is you. Like, I know it's supposed to be you from Gen 1, but, like...
That's why he has
Red
all 3
makes some
starters.
sense. Well, yeah. That makes sense, especially if he's coming from Yellow. But I always just figured it was Red, and that's why he had a Lapras, which made sense to me.
He has a Lapras in the remake, but in the original Gen 2, it's an Espeon.
Gotcha. Okay.
And so you go through all that, and you get the final secret, the true final boss, which is yourself in the first game. You beat him. And then that's the actual end of the game. That's why, I completed my Pokédex. Here's a piece of paper. That's it. Oh, you got to print it out yourself. We're not doing it for you.
Of course.
Oh, you have to make sure to come back and talk to me and then connect your Game Boy to a printer that we can sell you separately.
Capitalism is real. Very real.
Guys, so the point of all that is that they were designed to be JRPGs, and that's
Right.
how their Pokemon were designed. So Gen 3 is the first game that is designed as a Pokemon game. It's not a sequel to the first 2. It is still a Pokemon game. Like, they've included abilities. They've gone to greater efforts to actually balance the game to where early game Pokemon can be on your team in the finals of the game, like the Elite Four and the Champion, and actually be a viable team.
Right.
Like, the amount of Gen 3 people I know who have Mighty Enna on their team when they get to the Elite Four, like, who's
Yeah.
on my team.
Mine too. One of my favorites.
And considering, like, I had a Linoon on my team when I got to Elite Four. Like, my Linoon,
Nah, you better than me on that one. But, I mean, I don't hate Lightning. I just wouldn't have brought it to the Elite Four.
but they made a better effort to try to have a more balanced game.
Right.
That was also the first time. Well, Pokemon was doing a meta in Gen 2, like Nintendo was actually running this. Gen 3 is the first time Nintendo was actually having events for their tournament. The first time they were having announcements, they were marketing their tournaments.
Right.
Like, Gen 3 was the first time the game was balanced. EVs in Gen 1 and 2 were infinite. You could max out every stat. There was no reason not to. Gen 3 was the first generation where they cut that. And you had to actually pick which stats you wanted to balance. You actually wanted to boost. And every game after Ruby, Sapphire, Emerald, and Fire Red, Leaf Green are basically using them as a basis.
Okay.
So that's why we come to today of which generation feels the most Pokemon. Which generation do you think actually nails the aspects of what it means to be a Pokemon game the best? Because Gen 1 and Gen 2, while they are the originals, and I do love them, they are designed as JRPGs, not Pokemon games. Mm-hmm. So despite Gen 2 being my favorite, in all good faith, I cannot say it.
In other words, at the point of Gen 1 and Gen 2, Pokemon had not found its identity yet, which it does start to find in later games. So, yes. By the purpose of the question, we cannot be including Gen 1 or Gen 2, at least in their original version.
Yes.
So if we do want to go forward to Heart Gold and Soul Silver, that is absolutely on the table.
Yes, as are Fire Red and Leaf Green.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
I wouldn't personally put Fire Red and Leaf Green there, but that's fair. You mentioned Paldea earlier. Would you want to make an argument for that?
No.
No.
To be honest with you, no.
You are strictly stuck on...
So, okay, because, like I said, for me, this is a matter of, like, objective and versus subjective. Objectively, I want to say it might have to actually be Heart Gold, Soul Silver, right? Subjectively, I would say it's the remix of the Horn region, Omega Red, Alpha Sapphire. Mm-hmm. But, again, that's also just, I love that region. Yeah. I love what they did. So, like, I've talked about this to other people, and just, like, in general, like, it kind of gives, with that question at least, it kind of gives the Final Fantasy question of like which one's your favorite Final Fantasy, and it's usually the first one you played.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying. Most people usually play Final Fantasy 7 as their first one, and that's why it's their favorite, right? I know someone who played 10. I know people who played 9. I know someone who played 8. I know some people who played 6. I actually legitimately played 1 because I played all the not the console ones, but the handhelds. Yeah. So Final Fantasy 2 for me is actually my favorite. Granted, it's been forever. I don't remember too much about it, but nonetheless, that was the one that I liked the most. So for me, when it comes to Pokemon in that same regards, like objectively speaking, Heart Gold and Soul Silver, it gave you everything that I felt like we wanted from a Pokemon game, especially at that time, as a Pokemon game, especially since Game Freak or whoever, the Pokemon, no, I was pretty sure it was Game Freak, designed it better with knowing what they've done and how they're trying to move forward, right? But like, subjectively, just because we talk about me here, and Blaziken is my favorite, hands down, I'll fight anybody about it, hands all day, right? You're not about to get rid of my Ken Masters. I'm gonna have to say it's like Omega Red, Alpha Sapphire. Like, it did everything Heart Gold and Soul Silver did, and more. Like, and I don't want to say better necessarily, but like, the way it told the story, the way it looked, the way it did everything, I genuinely just love it better for me. So like, on that subjective level, I would have to say it's better.
I kind of want to be,
or it's the most Pokemon,
right? I almost want to take an ascended take on this, above it all. Okay, I'm just saying that's what I'm here for. I think.
All right, so I do apologize, but in the comments we were saying I thought you could get Murkrow early. I just looked it up. Murkrow is only available in the Kanto region in Gen 2. Oh. You specifically cannot run into it until the Karen battle. It is post-game content.
Yep.
Prez over here had a point that Archer, the rocket executive you run into in the radio tower, uses a Houndoom. He does.
Q was good.
You don't run into another Houndoom though until Karen, and you don't run into a Houndour. So it is literally Archer, Karen. So I hope you remember after the 5th gym, all the way up till you got to Karen, if you did figure it out, what worked.
Right.
So Archer's Houndoom is the first dark type you run into, and the next one is Karen.
Makes sense. Okay.
And you were saying?
Yes. So what you said about Final Fantasy hit me, and it hit me hard. Because...
I don't hold back, I'm sorry.
Because the thing here is that you could make the argument that at least from Gen 2 forward, every Pokemon game is the most Pokemon game. And I will get to the reason why. In Gen 3, we get abilities. And so before I move forward with that, I should also mention Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire with your bias in mind,
Right.
it hit me as someone who has played competitively for very long at this point, since Gen 4 at least, that specifically Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire is where we start to perfect competitive Pokemon.
I would agree.
Right. So with super training in existence, we start to get a point where you do not have to worry necessarily about running through the game and choosing exactly what Pokemon knocks out other Pokemon in order to get the exact EVs you need if you want to have a competitive Pokemon by the end of the team. You don't have to keep running back and forth through certain areas in order to train EVs. You start to be able to do that on your own. In fact, when I played Alpha Sapphire, I just started EV training off the
Same.
beginning. Because I wanted to have my team as personalized as possible. Because it matters to me.
Right. No, that's fair.
Yeah. But what I'm saying here is that in terms of the most Pokemon, when you get to do super training, that's personal time with that Pokemon.
That's true.
I know I spent so much time with various different ones. Even my Poochyena that became a Mightyena. Specifically because I wanted it to feel like a personalized... I want to say pet, but they're friends.
Right.
Right? So to that end, Pokemon does get a lot of flack for removing pieces in each upcoming gen, but something that they've started to keep the same is that super training. We have been getting ways to properly EV train without necessarily having that difficulty that exists.
I mean, that's true because
Yeah.
Gen 9, I'll say this because I was never really one for competitive. Like, I always liked the idea of competitive battling.
Right.
I was always for just catching and filling out the Pokedex, making a living dex in my PC.
Yeah.
I was always for that.
Gotta catch them all.
I mean, that was the whole premise of the show. That's what I made sure I did.
Right.
But I hear where you're coming from, right?
Right.
And I'm going to get into a question afterwards, but as a Pokemon breeder, right, I made
Oh.
sure, yes.
We got a title here. We
Yes,
got Brock.
absolutely.
All right.
I'm a cool trainer, but
Yeah,
Pokemon
yeah.
breeder, because that's exactly what I did.
Right?
Bro, swag all day. You give me a look. I bred
Any
Pokemon.
occasion.
We stay flying. So, the reason why I bring it up is because, especially with breeding from Gen 2 onward, right? For me, when it came to, super training, I wasn't a big fan of super training when it first came out. I'll be honest, right? It grew on me, so I ended up liking it. And especially what we have with now in Gen 9, it's so easy to just literally just customize the Pokemon that you want, right? Outside of breeding eggs, which I still think they could have done better on, but nonetheless, I think you're right on one point, definitely when it comes to customizing your Pokemon,
Right.
because we've all mentioned Poochyena. What was your guys' I'm gonna come to a reason for that in a second, but what was your reason for liking Poochyena? Because I know what mine was. And it was when I was going through the decks and I was going through Cerebi, because shout out to Cerebi,
Absolutely.
the Pokemon Bible, right? I was going through and I was just like, I want to make custom Pokemon, Pokemon with egg moves and different moves that you don't normally see on it.
Yep.
And when I found out that Poochyena and Mightyena can learn Poison Fang, it was a wrap. And once I learned it and had him out, he was leading out every team. He was starting every battle with Poison Fang. I get to use this baby dog. He was everything.
And that wasn't even in original Gen 3. That was in Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's why I was just like, this is amazing. How is nobody else using this? How does nobody else know about this? I loved Poochyena from that day forward. Mightyena was just, he was the OG for me.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It was one of the reasons why, we've talked about this separately, but outside of the podcast, but our Pokemon Dream Teams and whatnot, right?
Right.
I can go through every generation and list off the Pokemon I like from every dex. Gen 3 is the one where I have to list off the ones I don't like because I pretty much like everything from that generation.
Poochyena got Poison Fang in Gen 3.
Really?
Oh, snap. So, okay.
As an egg move?
So then,
well,
when
it
did I
was
find out about that?
no. I mean, to be fair, it is easier to get them.
Oh, absolutely.
In Alpha,
that's true.
yeah, Alpha Sapphire and Omega Ruby, specifically because they give you the option to start hunting for them early in the game.
This is true.
I don't remember the exact reason.
DexNav.
It was the DexNav.
Because so super training was introduced in X and Y. It was brought over to Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, which then introduced the DexNav.
Okay.
And the DexNav was beautiful because it allowed you to catch wild Pokemon that had 3 perfect IVs if done correctly.
And now you can basically not only perfect that hunting,
Yep.
but you could also just have a custom Pokemon with an egg move, which it did give you a little notification ahead of time
Yep.
in the overworld map of what this Pokemon, why it might be special.
Yeah.
Which
I like that.
the idea of having a Pokemon be special is exactly what draws so many people to Pokemon in itself.
Yeah.
You want to have a proper friend. So in the fact of you having that Poochyena with Poison Fang, that is your friend now,
Yes.
who has its own just absolutely fantastic
Yes.
move.
Yes. And with that being said, because I also want to bring in the idea of, like, since we're talking about, like, the most Pokemon, we also have to talk about the friendship level of it, right?
Right.
I know I do this. I don't know how many other people do this, but is there? Do you guys have like designated nicknames for specific
Yes.
species of Pokemon?
You do not know the levels to which I have designated names.
Yes, yes,
They're
I do.
written down, yes.
Not only, yes, so I take notes for everything.
Yes.
And among the notes that I take everything for, you can find a dedicated list with puns and Pokemon all throughout, going straight down for a good 3 to 5 seconds of my phone. It matters so much to me. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because I was just about to get to that. Like, one of the reasons why I love the Poochyena so much is because, granted, it came from a horror movie, but I nicknamed it Cujo.
Yeah.
Because it just fits. You telling me I have a dog, which I'm not exactly sure which breed Mightyena would count as outside of a hyena,
Yeah.
but like with Poison Fang, yeah, he's gonna be named Cujo. He's biting any and everything,
That's
right?
right.
And then, another example, every Blaziken I own, shout out to Air Gear, has been named Spitfire. Especially since they came out with hidden abilities and he got speed boost.
Yeah.
Fair.
Yeah. You're not getting rid of that from me. So like
Oh.
every Blaziken I own, if it has speed boost, will be named Spitfire. Yeah, honestly, even if it doesn't have speed boost, I'm still calling it Spitfire.
My Dragonite is Yoshi. I didn't even know his shiny was coming at the time.
This is on point. That's fair. That's fair.
My Poochyena was named Risa because Risa is Spanish for like a smile or a laugh. And because it's based on a hyena and hyenas laugh, I figured, especially with listening to the actual call in game, I felt like it fit so well. You gotta give her howl. You gotta give her
Gotcha.
howl. You
Yeah.
gotta raise that attack, and then she just absolutely goes in on them after laughing in their faces.
You think you about to beat me? You think you about to who?
No.
That's funny.
That does go back into something else. You asked us, why did we have Poochyena in our teams? Ego.
Oh no, that's exactly why. For me, it was this personal image of having this Pokemon with a cocky personality just laughing in somebody's face. Because whenever I come up with something for this little list of nicknames that I have, each one has a personality with that.
That's fair.
Each one is its own individual person, for lack of a better word. So when I have that Poochyena, that is my Poochyena, not something that I could just replace and get another Poochyena, name it that. Heck, I have gotten multiple different Pokemon with different... It's not just a designated name for that species that I have. It is for that individual. I have had multiple individuals with different names that I have to come up with because now they're mine.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I love that.
I'm here for
I
it.
love that.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
So the nickname I had for Poochyena actually involves why I like it so much. It's a puppy.
This is valid reason.
That's literally it.
This is very-
I ran into it. I was like, dog.
Yeah.
This-
You're right there.
best friend, you're staying with me forever. And due to that, I actually remembered, because I remember we were having this conversation before and I couldn't remember what I named it. It's Cerberus.
You
Yeah.
named your dog Spot.
Yes.
That's real.
You named your dog Spot. Okay.
Because of the lore behind how Hades gets Cerberus.
Yep.
Which is Cerberus was sent to kill him as a puppy. Hades found the puppy, was like, mine, and just raised it. And now Cerberus is his loyal guard dog.
And this fits so well because we also have to remember it's a dark type.
Yep.
It's a dark type, which is the underhanded type in
Yeah.
Pokemon, explicitly by name.
Yeah, that's fair.
Known
Oh
as
my
the
God.
evil type in Japan.
Well, it is evil in the mischievous way, but yes,
Yes.
for context.
It's just naughty.
I don't like
Like
the way
it's
you said
nature. That was a setup.
it. That was almost like Courage the Cowardly Dog,
I
Fred.
mean, it
No.
was. Yeah, I want to say it was.
I'm going to give an example of how my nicknames go, by the way, just to show how personal they are. I have a Magnum ton named Link because it's linked together. And then I have one named Maguire. Magnet Wire Maguire.
Oh my god. Are you serious?
I am dead serious.
Yo, okay. I like it. I like it. I like it a lot. Oh my gosh. So then, did any one of us have a nickname for Rayquaza?
I named mine Shenron.
That's fair. That's real.
I did too.
I'm sorry.
Actually,
I don't tend to run legendary, so that's just.
Oh, it wasn't part of my
I mean,
team.
true, but
Oh,
like, yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's fair.
I never keep legendaries on the team unless it's
Yeah.
like for like headcanon lore type. You know
Right,
what I'm
right,
saying?
right.
But like outside of that, no, I'm still nicknaming them though.
Of course, right.
Like honestly, and I want to say it was because of you. I know this for a fact. After I met you, I used to name it. I used to name mine Shenron too. But then when I found out you named yours Shenron, I was just like, I feel like the name is a little sullied. Instead of naming it Purunga.
Do you even wish?
Do you even wish, bro?
The Dragon Ascend. There it is.
Oh, absolutely.
You know what?
Yeah.
Now I'm feeling petty. Now I'm gonna get a shiny Ray and I'm gonna call him Super Shenron.
Oh my lord.
It will keep going.
It will absolutely. Oh my gosh, that's hilarious.
What's your